They were supposed to be a punchline, two impoverished identical sisters thrust onto a school platform for mockery. But when they began to sing, the audience fell hushed, and a lone father's unassuming existence was forever transformed. Before we dive into this remarkable tale of musical redemption, connection, and new beginnings, please consider subscribing to our channel. Tales this extraordinary are uncommon, and occasionally a single melody can reshape everything. Now let me share what truly transpired. Winter had descended early across Nebraska's flatlands that season. By mid-November, gusts had already blanketed the cracked roadways with white, leaving trees standing stark like skeletons, yearning for warmth. Jack Harlow tightened his grip on the steering wheel of his weathered Chevy pickup, windshield wipers battling against the icy pellets. The heater blew tepid air in unpredictable bursts, mirroring everything else in his recent life. He'd traveled this route countless times from the timber mill back to his aging cabin, nestled at the edge of Willow Creek. But this evening carried a different weight, a stillness so profound it made the highway seem to hold its breath. That's when he noticed it. Just beyond the curve near the forgotten train depot, a corroded shipping container stood with its doors partially open, swaying slightly with each gust. Initially, he might have continued past as usual, but a glimpse of movement, a small, desperate hand slapping against metal, caught his attention. Jack slammed the brakes. Gravel crunched as the truck skidded before halting. Without hesitation, he flung the door open and rushed through the snowfall. Each blast of wind cut through his jacket, but he barely registered it. Reaching the container, he heard faint whimpering. No, not singing. Broken, frightened humming like a lullaby remembered in terror. He yanked the door fully open and his breath caught. Inside, huddled against a damp blanket, were two girls, twins no older than 10. Their cheeks were raw from the cold, lips trembling. One looked up, eyes wide but surprisingly unafraid. The other clutched a tattered paper snowflake. Please, the first whispered, don't tell them we hid here. Jack asked no questions. He simply removed his coat and wrapped it around both of them. We need to get you warm. Come on. The children hesitated. Are you calling someone? One asked. I might, he answered honestly, lifting the smaller child into his arms. But right now, I'm going to make sure you survive. Back at his cabin, the wood stove roared as warmth began to fill the space. Jack placed mugs of hot chocolate on the table, while the girls, now in dry clothes, huddled together beneath a quilt. What are your names? He asked gently. Luna, said the bolder one. She's Lila. We're twins. 9 3/4 inches. He smiled faintly. That's a very precise. Luna nodded. Our mom always said numbers matter. Where is she now? Luna looked down. She left. Aunt Carla's supposed to take care of us. But she said if we cried again, she'd abandon us in the forest. Jack swallowed hard. The past always found cruel ways to resurface. He'd heard too many similar stories. Some ended hopefully, most with tragic headlines. He stood and walked down the hallway, knocking gently on a door. Rachel, he called, everything okay in there? No answer came. There rarely was. Rachel hadn't spoken in nearly 2 years, not since the day she collapsed on her middle school auditorium stage. The taunting, the whispers, the scrutiny. It had fractured something inside her. Diagnosed with selective mutism, she'd become a ghost within her own home, communicating only through glances and gestures. Jack thought, perhaps naively, that bringing these girls inside, even just for one night, might awaken something in her. He didn't expect miracles, just a moment of connection, a glimmer of hope. Back in the living room, Lila hummed softly while sipping her cocoa. The melody seemed almost aimless, yet strangely comforting. Luna closed her eyes, then joined in. Two soft, imperfect voices intertwining like familiar harmony lines, reuniting after years apart. From down the hallway, the door creaked open. Rachel appeared barefoot in her oversized flannel shirt, her gaze fixed on the twins. She didn't speak, but she stood listening. Jack froze, watching his daughter with quiet amazement. She hadn't even looked at a stranger in months. Now she stood motionless, her eyes damp with something resembling memory or perhaps longing. Luna smiled at her. "Hi, you can sit with us if you want." Rachel didn't move, but she didn't retreat either. She leaned against the doorframe and tilted her head as if recalling a melody she hadn't dared to sing. That night, after the girls had fallen asleep on the pull-out couch, Jack sat alone in the kitchen with an untouched cup of coffee. The air smelled of aged pine and cinnamon toast. He stared at the wooden box on the shelf across from him, a vintage recording device with a built-in microphone, the kind songwriters used in bygone eras. Inside were the final recordings his wife had made with Rachel before she passed. Lullabies, giggles, whispered harmonies. They hadn't been played in 2 years, just like the piano in the corner, just like the man who once believed music could rescue broken souls. But something about Luna and Lila reminded him of earlier times, the purity of melody, the power in raw, unpolished voices. Jack reached for the box, and for the first time in years he opened it. The next morning arrived quietly without ceremony, just pale gray light filtering through frost-covered windows and the sound of wood settling in the cold. Jack woke first automatically, reaching for the coffee pot, as if muscle memory overpowered sleep. He said little, not even to himself. He never needed to. The quiet had long since become embedded in the walls. But today, 3 additional breaths filled that silence. The twins still slept on the fold-out couch, their limbs intertwined like branches from a single tree. Jack observed them for a long moment before igniting the stove. The flames crackled. The air warmed. Something shifted inside him, soft and unfamiliar, like a note played on a guitar that hadn't been tuned in years but still rang true. He resisted naming it. He simply allowed it to exist. Rachel was already seated at the kitchen table when he returned with 2 chipped mugs of cocoa. She'd entered without making a sound. She never did. She sat with perfect posture, hands folded, eyes watching the steam rise from her cup. She didn't touch it. Her long, dark hair hung loosely around her face, veiling her expression the way words no longer could. Jack sat across from her and waited. This was their dance, a stillness in which he offered presence, and she, on rare occasions, offered the same. "Are you okay with them staying a while?" he asked quietly. Rachel didn't respond, but her fingers curled slightly around the cup. That was affirmation. He nodded. "Good. I think they need it. And maybe we do too." She glanced up at that, just briefly, enough for him to see her eyes. Those same eyes that once sparkled when her mother sang to her on the back porch long before silence moved in. Later that morning, Luna and Lila awakened, groggy but smiling. They helped set the table without being asked, clinking spoons and laughing at the stubborn toaster that insisted on burning only one side of the bread. Rachel watched from the hallway, half hidden by the frame. She remained a shadow in her own home. Lila spotted her and waved. "We saved you the red plate. It's the only one without chips." Rachel hesitated, then stepped forward. Slowly, she took the plate in both hands and joined them at the table. Jack held his breath. 3 girls, 1 table. No words spoken, but something far better. Laughter, breath, belonging. The snow outside continued falling. School was canceled. The roads were silent. The house for once wasn't. Jack retrieved old board games from the hall closet and let the girls debate rules no one remembered. Rachel didn't speak, but when Luna accidentally toppled the entire Monopoly bank, it was Rachel who knelt to help her rebuild. The smile that passed between them illuminated more than any fireplace could. After dinner, the twins began humming again, low and casual, the kind of tune children create when they feel safe. Rachel stood nearby, watching. Something in her posture changed. Her shoulders relaxed, her head tilted slightly like a flower turning towards sunlight. Then it happened. A single note escaped her lips. Soft, barely audible, but unmistakable. Jack froze mid-step in the kitchen. He turned but said nothing. Luna noticed, eyes widening. "You're singing," she said gently. Rachel blinked and fled. Jack found her in the garage, curled up in the back seat of the old station wagon they never used anymore. The cold didn't seem to bother her. Her breath emerged in tiny clouds, her arms wrapped around her knees. He didn't immediately open the door, just stood outside, hand on the frosted handle. "I heard you," he said finally, "and it was beautiful." Silence. "You don't have to fear your own voice, Rachel. Not here." A pause. "I wasn't afraid," she whispered, barely more than a breath. "I forgot that I could." They sat together in the cold for a long while. No lectures, no pressure, just shared stillness. The kind that communicates truth without requiring translation. Jack remembered how he once thought music would save her, some magical melody that would heal everything. But now he understood better. It wasn't music that rescued people. It was being heard. That night, after the twins had gone to bed, Jack brought down the old guitar case from the attic. Dust billowed as he opened it, revealing the worn, honey-colored body of the instrument. He hadn't touched it in over a decade. Rachel stood in the doorway, eyes wide. She said nothing, but took 2 steps forward. "Remember this?" he asked softly. She nodded. He sat down, tuned the strings slowly, reverently. The wood creaked beneath his fingers, but once he strummed, the sound emerged warm, full, and alive. "I'm thinking maybe we can try something again," he said. Rachel moved closer. "Not for performance," he added. "Not for anyone else. Just for us." She looked down. Then, as if trusting the strings more than her voice, she whispered, "Okay." As the fire diminished to embers, Jack played the first chords of an old lullaby, one Rachel's mother used to hum when nights grew too long. Rachel listened. Then, quiet as snow, she began humming a harmony. Luna and Lila, hearing from the hallway, crept back in. 4 voices, 1 guitar. No one planned it. No one rehearsed. But in that moment, the silence wasn't broken. It was transformed. There was something sacred about the quiet that followed the music. Not the awkward emptiness of unspoken words, but a warm golden stillness, as if the house itself was holding its breath, grateful, amazed at the return of a sound it believed lost forever. Jack remained motionless, his fingers still gently resting on the strings of his guitar. Across from him, Rachel kept her head lowered, but her humming continued, soft and steady, as if each note was a thread reconnecting her to the world. Luna and Lila sat cross-legged on the floor, swaying slightly, eyes closed, absorbing every vibration. For the first time in years, Jack didn't feel like someone standing amidst life's ruins. He felt like a builder creating something new. The days that followed passed slowly and sweetly, like snow melting under weak winter sunshine. With roads still too treacherous for school buses, the girls remained at the cabin. Mornings brought oatmeal and card games. Afternoons filled with snowmen and sledding down the hill behind the woodshed. But the evenings, that's when the magic returned. Each night as daylight faded and the fire sparked to life, the girls gathered around the piano or guitar. They didn't call it practice. They didn't label it anything. They simply sang, sometimes ancient hymns, sometimes invented melodies with nonsensical lyrics and harmonies only they comprehended. And Rachel, bless her, Rachel sang. She spoke little during daylight hours. She still avoided strangers' gazes. But when music began, she blossomed like springtime, pushing through frozen earth. Jack kept the recorder running each time, placing it discreetly on the mantel. Not for fame or posterity, but for safekeeping, like capturing fireflies in a jar to convince himself the light had truly returned. One Thursday evening, as Jack was tuning his guitar, Luna looked up from her sketchpad and asked, "Could we sing at the talent show?" Lila glanced up, startled. "You mean at school? On stage?" "Yeah," Luna replied as if obvious. "We've learned 3 songs now. That one Rachel started the other night. That one's special." Rachel's fingers tightened around her cocoa mug, her lips pressed together. Jack set his guitar down carefully. "I'm not sure that's ideal." "Why not?" Luna questioned. "We aren't afraid." He studied them. All 3. Determined, fierce, innocent in ways yet unbroken. That was his concern. He knew how easily the world could shatter it. Because school talent shows can be complicated, he said carefully. People laugh when they don't understand beauty, and that kind of laughter cuts deeper than silence. Rachel nodded. She knew that laughter too well, but Luna wouldn't relent. Then maybe it's time someone gave them something they had to understand. The next morning, Jack walked to the mailbox and discovered a flyer posted on the adjacent bulletin board. Winter Talent Showcase, one night only, open to all students and families. Registration deadline, Friday. He stood in the biting wind, the paper fluttering like a challenge. His hand hovered over it before he finally tore off a registration tab. Back home, the girls had already arranged a makeshift stage in the living room, pillows as footlights, a fireplace poker as a microphone stand. Rachel sat at the keyboard, her fingers tentatively finding chords while Luna and Lila experimented with harmonies. There was laughter, genuine, uninhibited laughter. Jack watched from the doorway, saying nothing. That evening he retrieved his old music journal, a weathered leather-bound notebook untouched since before Rachel was born. The pages contained half-finished songs, lyrics scribbled in darkness, melodies composed for a voice he hadn't heard in a decade. He turned to a page with only one line written. Some voices don't need to rise, they just need to reach. He tapped his pen against it, then added, Tonight they reached me. Friday arrived. The girls submitted their names. No turning back. That night during rehearsal, something failed. Midway through a song, the piano produced a metallic clang like a miscast bell. Rachel pressed the key again. The note wavered. Luna tried adjusting her vocal line, but the pitch was wrong. Lila faltered. Jack knelt beside the piano and opened the lid. Broken hammer, he said, probably from last winter's cold snap. I'll try to repair it. Rachel looked panicked. But we don't have time. Jack stood and walked to the back room. When he returned, he was holding the Taylor guitar. The girls grew silent. You know, he said thoughtfully, your harmonies would sound even better with something warmer underneath, something simpler, like this. He strummed once, low and mellow. The sound filled the room like candlelight. We're changing the arrangement? Lila asked. Jack smiled. We're not changing, we're evolving. They spent the remainder of the evening reworking everything. No sheet music, no formal structure, just ears, hearts, and instinct. Luna and Lila adapted instantly, responding like twin wings catching a fresh current. Rachel, seated beside her father, began humming her part softly, gradually building confidence. By midnight, they had created something new, not polished, not perfect, but alive. As they finished for the night, Luna looked up and asked, Do you think they'll hear us? Jack paused, then answered, If they're ready, they'll listen. The auditorium predated most buildings in town. Creaking wooden floors, orange velvet curtains faded to dull rust, ceiling tiles that hummed with memories of school dances, graduation speeches, and forgotten recitals. To some it was merely a gym with lighting, but to Luna, Lila, and Rachel, it loomed like a mountain. Jack sat in the front row, the girls standing behind the curtain, peering nervously through a tear in the fabric. The performers' list was taped to the wall beside them, hastily typed with penciled additions. Their group had been added last. Number 14, unnamed trio. Nobody knows it's us, Luna murmured, more to herself. Good, Lila replied, shifting anxiously. Let them laugh before we sing. It'll hit harder. Rachel remained silent. Her hands were clasped tightly at her chest, eyes on her shoes. But she was there, standing, waiting. That alone was miraculous. The hours before their performance had been unkind. It began with a teacher's casual remark. I hope the girls don't freeze up. That kind of thing leaves an impression on everyone. Then came the stares in the hallway. Some curious, some amused, some openly mocking. Someone had even scrawled twin freaks in marker on a practice room door. Jack had seen it. He'd taken a breath, erased it, and returned to rehearsal as if nothing happened. But inside, the old fury had stirred, the one he'd buried with every unsent letter to parents who had whispered about his daughter. the same fury that had silenced his guitar for years. That night, as the girls rehearsed one final time in the living room, Jack's finger slipped on a chord. A sour note rang out. He cursed quietly, adjusted the tuning peg. The girls paused. "You okay?" Luna asked. "I'm fine," Jack lied. Rachel looked at him, then gently touched his arm. He turned toward her, surprised. "I can start it," she whispered. He blinked. "The first note." She nodded. That was the moment he realized she wasn't just healing. She was leading. Backstage, the MC announced, "Next up, a special performance from three brave young ladies. Please welcome our surprise trio." Applause. Movement. Time slowed. Jack stepped onto the stage first. Guitar slung low across his chest, wearing his worn flannel shirt and jeans he hadn't purchased for the occasion. He didn't need polish. He needed presence. Then came Luna and Lila holding hands, heads high. Finally Rachel, quiet, small, but upright like a sapling, refusing to bend in the storm. Whispers rippled through the audience. Some recognized them. Others simply stared. The girls moved to center stage. Jack sat to the side, strummed a soft open chord. Then Rachel closed her eyes and sang. It wasn't loud. It wasn't technically flawless, but it was authentic. Her voice trembled like a violin finding its breath, then grew steadier, warmer. Luna joined on the next line, their voices brushing against each other like feathers. Lila entered last, sliding underneath with a harmony so delicate it felt like remembrance. Jack watched as their voices wove in and out, never competing, only elevating. When he reached the bridge, he let the melody breathe. The guitar's tone resembled wind through pine, raw, comforting, resolute. The audience, restless moments earlier, grew still. Some leaned forward. Some sat with hands pressed to lips. Some cried. The final chorus swelled not with volume, but with grace. Rachel's voice floated upward. Luna held the center. Lila whispered the undercurrent. Three voices, one sound. Not polished, but perfect. The last note faded like the hush after snowfall. Then silence. For a long, suspended moment, that was all there was. A woman in the second row, grandmother to a soccer team member, stood first. Then a boy in the back. Then a teacher. Then the entire auditorium rose together. The applause wasn't thunderous. It was reverent. Luna squeezed Lila's hand so tightly her knuckles whitened. Rachel looked outward, blinking rapidly. Jack smiled at them. Truly, deeply smiled. Then bowed his head over the strings. Later in the hallway, as students swirled around them with congratulations and wide-eyed stares, a boy, one who had once laughed when Rachel flinched at the bell, approached her. He said nothing initially, then awkwardly extended a wrapped peppermint. "For you," he said. I'm sorry." Rachel looked at him, accepted the candy, and nodded. Outside, the wind had intensified, but it wasn't biting anymore. It was brisk, clean, like drawing breath after being underwater too long. Jack helped the girls into the truck. None spoke much. The radio remained off. The headlights carved passages through the snow. But in his chest there was music, not a song, but a beginning. Back at the cabin, Luna and Lila fell asleep quickly, curled like commas beneath their blankets. Jack stood at Rachel's bedroom door, watching. She sat cross-legged on her bed, earbuds in, softly replaying the recording of their performance on Jack's phone. She looked up, removed one earbud. "Can we record tomorrow?" He blinked. "Record what?" Rachel tilted her head. "Our album," then smiled. 3 days after the performance, a photograph of Luna, Lila, and Rachel on stage appeared in the local newspaper under the headline, "Three Voices, One Moment. Talent Show Brings Unexpected Tears." It was a small article nestled between the church bake sale announcement and a notice about pothole repairs on Main Street, but it meant everything. Jack clipped it and hung it above the kitchen sink. Not from pride, but for evidence. Proof that something pure had occurred, and for once the world hadn't turned away. The following week brought more attention than anyone anticipated. Emma Warren, the school's music teacher, and someone Jack had known long ago in another life, visited the cabin under the pretense of delivering a thank you card. Her cheeks were flushed from the wind, but her eyes were warm. "I wanted to ask," she said, handing Jack a folded flyer, "would the girls consider submitting a performance for the district showcase in Lincoln next month? It's juried, professional stage, genuine audience, actual scouts from community arts centers." Jack hesitated. He glanced toward the living room where Luna and Lila sprawled on the rug doing homework, while Rachel quietly doodled in the margins of a music notebook. "Do they know you're asking?" Emma smiled. "Not yet. I thought I'd speak with you first." He nodded. "I'll ask them." But internally, anxiety began to stir. The previous performance had been miraculous. Yes, but also fragile. And this was larger, riskier, more public. He'd witnessed what public attention did to young talent. It either elevated them or hollowed them out. And Jack had already lost too much to risk emptying someone else. That evening after dinner, Jack gathered the girls around the kitchen table and unfolded the flyer. Rachel traced her finger over the bold title, "Voices of Tomorrow, State Youth Arts Showcase." Luna leaned closer. "So we'd be competing?" "Not exactly," Jack explained. "More like being featured, a chance to be noticed." "By people who can help?" Lila asked. "By people who can judge," Rachel said softly. Everyone turned toward her. Jack studied his daughter's expression. She wasn't fearful, just cautious. The scars of silence never completely disappeared. They merely changed form. "We don't have to," he said gently. "What you accomplished last week already exceeded expectations." Rachel didn't immediately respond. Then almost reluctantly, she whispered, "But what if there's a girl out there like me, and she's waiting for someone to sing first?" Luna reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Jack exhaled slowly. "Then we'd better give her a song worth hearing." The girls worked harder than ever afterward. They selected a piece that combined Rachel's gentle tone with Luna's brightness and Lila's subtle depth. Jack helped transpose it for guitar, adding rhythm that built gradually, a quiet storm of emotion beneath their harmonies. They practiced in the garage most evenings, the acoustics surprisingly perfect among the old tools and oil cans. Luna called it the echo room. Rachel began keeping a small journal, writing lyrics and noting melodic fragments. She didn't share them yet, but Jack noticed she kept them close, tucked inside her coat pocket like a secret she wasn't ready to reveal. Everything seemed perfect until it wasn't. The day before the submission deadline, a letter arrived from the school superintendent's office. It was addressed directly to Jack and printed on thick official paper. He read it twice and felt something inside him turn cold. "Dear Mr. Harlow, after reviewing district policy and receiving multiple parental concerns regarding last week's talent show performance, the school board has determined that non-enrolled students are ineligible to perform at district events. As such, the trio act featuring your daughter Rachel and students Luna and Lila Winters does not meet submission criteria. We understand this may cause disappointment and encourage all eligible students to submit individual performances instead. Sincerely, Brenda M. Ellsworth, Director of Youth Arts Participation." Jack sat at the kitchen table long after the letter slipped from his fingers. He didn't immediately tell the girls. He couldn't. That night after they'd gone to bed, he called Emma. "She knew," he said quietly. "Whoever this Brenda is, she knew exactly what she was doing, and someone guided her to it." A long pause followed. "I'm sorry, Jack. I had no idea this would happen." "I did," he said bitterly. "That's the problem. I've seen how quickly people change direction when something authentic begins to shine. You won't let this stop them, will you?" He looked at the recorder on the mantel. "No," he said, "but I need to be strategic about our response." The next day, he gathered the girls and read them the letter. Rachel didn't cry. Luna did quietly. Lila crossed her arms, jaw tight. "So what now?" "We just disappear again." "No," Jack said. "We record it anyway. We submit it. If they discard it, that's their choice. But they're going to hear it first." He turned to Rachel. And if you want to write something new, something that expresses what you want them to hear, now's the moment. Rachel looked up, eyes clear. Then she stood, went to her room, and returned with her notebook. She placed it on the table. The title on the first page read, A Song for the Silent. The melody began slowly, tentatively, like someone walking barefoot across ice. Then note by note, it gained strength. Jack sat beside Rachel on the living room floor, guitar across his lap, watching as she traced each word in her notebook before transforming it into sound. Luna and Lila curled up on the sofa, listening with the kind of reverence only children can summon when they recognize something important. A song for the ones who don't speak loud, but carry thunder in their hearts. Rachel's voice wavered slightly on thunder, but she continued. Jack strummed along in a soft minor key. He knew better than to interrupt a song's birth. Rachel's notebook now contained dozens of verses, fragments, scribbled dreams, but this composition felt different. This wasn't merely music, it was testimony. And if the district refused to hear them, they would make themselves impossible to ignore. By midweek, the cabin had completely transformed. The kitchen became a vocal warm-up zone. The hallway converted into a choreographed practice path. Even the garage, once a cold echo chamber, now had blankets fastened to walls for acoustics. Jack set up his old condenser microphone, purchased long ago for performances that never materialized, and connected it to a vintage laptop he dusted off. The girls took turns rehearsing harmonies while Rachel sat cross-legged on the floor, refining every word. They were constructing a cathedral of sound in a house built of pine and grief. And it was succeeding until the piano failed. It happened the night before their final recording. Rachel was practicing the introduction to A Song for the Silent. Her fingers now moved confidently across keys, her voice blending perfectly with Jack's gentle guitar strumming. Then a sharp crack. The middle C hammer stuck. She pressed it again. The note emerged dead. Jack hurried over, opened the lid. Broken flange, he muttered. Rachel's hands trembled. I can't play without it. Jack crouched. You don't need to. We'll adjust the arrangement to guitar only. You've done it before. No, she said barely above a whisper. Not for this song. Jack looked into her eyes and recognized that tight spiral of fear intertwined with determination. The piano wasn't merely an instrument. It was protection. It provided sanctuary while she found courage to sing. He nodded slowly. I'll fix it. He worked throughout the night. By lantern light, using tweezers, adhesive, and hope, Jack disassembled the damaged mechanism and reattached the broken flange. The process required hours. His fingers ached. His vision blurred. But he persisted. Not because he believed he could save the instrument, but because he knew he had to try. At dawn, he pressed the middle C. It sang, not perfectly, but truthfully. By the time the girls awakened, sunlight had spilled gold across the snow. Rachel sat at the piano, touched the key, held her breath. It responded as if it remembered her. She looked at her father. No smile, no words, just a small nod conveying something deeper, an understanding that existed beyond language. Jack stepped back, allowing the three girls to find their positions. Rachel began the introduction. Luna and Lila exchanged a glance, then joined. To the girl in the back, who won't raise her hand. To the boy in the hall with silence like sand. Their harmonies were tighter than ever, layered, precise. Then Rachel entered the chorus. We were made for music, even if we never make a sound. We were made for more than fading. We were made to be found. The guitar accompanied them, warm and supportive, letting their voices glide over chords like light across water. After the final note, no one spoke. Jack stopped the recorder, heart racing. He didn't voice it, but he knew that was the perfect take. He uploaded the file to a private link, completed the submission form himself. Where it requested the group name, he paused, then typed the silent three. Where it asked for a message to the jury panel, he wrote, We understand we don't meet your criteria, but we hope we reach your hearts. If there's space for three girls who learn to sing in the world's broken places, then perhaps this song is for you too. He hovered over the submit button momentarily, then clicked and released it. The following afternoon, rejection arrived swiftly, not from the jury, but from a parent. Jack was in the grocery store examining bruised apples when he overheard it. Must be easy using sympathy to get stage time these days. He turned. It was Thomas Crane, father of a boy in Rachel's former class. Banker, deacon, the kind of man who smiled with his mouth but never his eyes. "Excuse me," Jack said, calm but firm. Thomas shrugged. "Just stating facts. Many folks think it's manipulative parading those unfortunate twins in your situation. Some people work diligently to earn recognition." Jack clenched his jaw. "They did work diligently, and they earned every moment." Thomas leaned closer. "Well, don't expect universal applause just because you presented a sad story with a tune." Jack didn't respond. He didn't need to, because certain songs weren't intended for men like that. They were meant for girls still learning to sing and for fathers who refused to let them be silenced. Snow had begun melting into patches of slush on sidewalks, but the air remained sharp enough to sting your lungs. March was Nebraska's indecisive month, neither winter nor spring, just a prolonged gray interval between seasons. Inside the cabin, warmth prevailed, but only because of the fire Jack maintained and the strange momentum that had captured the household. Even after rejection, the song lingered like smoke clinging to fabric. Rachel played it daily now, not rehearsing, simply living within it. The twins hummed while brushing teeth, feeding birds, stirring soup. Even Jack caught himself whistling the chorus under his breath while chopping wood. The district might have dismissed them, but something deeper had taken root. Emma visited again on Friday, carrying a small package wrapped in brown paper. Her cheeks were pink from the wind, and her smile, hesitant but genuine, made Jack feel like a teenager with splinters in his palms again. "I found something I believe belongs to you," she said, placing the package on the kitchen counter. Jack raised an eyebrow but remained silent. Emma unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a vintage capo, worn smooth at the edges, and a handwritten chord chart in his wife's handwriting. The ink had smudged in places, but the title remained legible. "For Rachel, Someday." He stared at it, the song they never completed. A lullaby composed during nights when Rachel had colic and Jack played guitar in the hallway to soothe her to sleep. "I thought it was lost after the fire," he murmured. "It was in the school's music storage," Emma said quietly. "I found it tucked inside an old case." Rachel entered just then, eyes curious. Jack handed her the paper. She traced the letters with one finger, then looked up. "Can we play it?" He blinked. "You want to finish it?" Rachel nodded. "It already feels complete. I just want to hear it." They spent the next 2 hours on the living room floor, with Jack cross-legged and barefoot, the girls leaning against pillows and cushions, listening as he reconstructed the chord progression. It began softly, 2 chords alternating like a heartbeat, then a rise, then a gentle descent. Rachel sang the first line. Luna and Lila joined by the second verse. By the bridge, Jack's hands moved as if they had never stopped playing. His fingers remembered what his heart had long tried to forget. He glanced at Emma, standing in the doorway, with a hand covering her mouth. She wasn't crying, but she was listening as if hearing music for the first time in years. The next morning, Jack woke before dawn,